So I've been reflecting on something that happened a couple days ago. I was leaving Minneapolis heading to Vegas, and I had a connection through Chicago. And well, if you've connected through Chicago, you know that that's always a fun time. Well, mine was. As I sat on the tarmac and on the plane that landed and watched the plane that I was supposed to be on taking off. Now, for most of us, that would have been pretty frustrating. And yeah, I wasn't thrilled, but it was what it was. I got to spend the night in Chicago, and I wasn't sure why I was there, right? But whatever. So, got the hotel, got there, and the next morning ordered a Lyft to come pick me up. And I don't know about your experience with Uber and Lyft, but they're always late for me. And I guess Lyft knows that or something, because when I went to book the night before to schedule the pickup, it said, "Hey, we guarantee you will be on time or you're going to get this crazy credit." Well, they were 20 minutes late, 21 minutes late to be exact. And so, knowing that I was pushing late to get into the airport again and having to deal with that Chicago airport again, I was a little frustrated. But I said, whatever. So I got in the lift, and it was early in the morning, and I decided I want to take a nap. And so I closed my eyes, and as I sat in the back, however, the driver decided I wasn't allowed to nap because she talked the entire way there. The entire way. And as she's talking, everything that she said was complaining. She complained about everything. She complained about being at a traffic light, and why is it red and there are no cars going the other way? Why won't they fix the sensors and fix the computers, and this was wrong, and then she started talking about how much she worries, and she worries about this, and she worries about that, and she worries and she worries and she worries, and everything was a complaint. And I sat there and I listened to her. We ended up in a conversation and about her health and different things, and I sent her to some doctors who may be able to help her. But here was my reflection point. For how many of us are we that lady to someone else? For how many of us do we spend most of our days complaining about what's going on? Not looking at the good, but looking at all of the negative and looking at everything through a negative lens. And the next day, I was conscious of it. I was conscious of how often I was being negative about what was going on and saying negative things to whoever I was talking to, or complaining about whatever, or having not the greatest of perspective on things. And I was shocked at how often I myself was doing it, because it rang and it pang in my ear as I listened to her do it. But I was listening to her do it about things that I thought were insignificant and inconsequential and things you shouldn't even care to be negative about. But does someone else look at me that way? And it made me ask, not about them, but about me. Why am I there? Because as I'm giving her advice about not holding on to worry and not holding on to negativity, am I doing the same thing? But just that I've justified the things that I want to have in my brain to be concerned about. Whereas I looked at her and, I hate to say it, judged that what she was worrying about wasn't worth worrying about. Okay? Here's the point of all of it. Here's what I know. Worry is killing all of us. Worry is killing me. I was watching as her mood just sunk and sunk as she continued to worry, and as she was talking. And then she started talking about all of the medical ailments that she had, that I know a lot of those are diseases because she's been worrying, and the food that she's eating and putting the two of them together, and it's just a bad combination in your body. But why am I any better? Why am I any better? And how do we get out of this cycle of of negative thought and worry. How do we get out of that? We've got some thoughts, but right now that's where I am. And thinking through some of this. So would love your input on this.